And I've been just trying to prep some questions for us and make sure they're all really good. Make sure I do enough research in depth so that we can talk about it and have a good
Yeah,
have a good talk.
yeah.
And
Well, how much do you know about the Vietnam theater right
um,
now?
a pretty good bit. I've been going to the library and reading some books on it. I'm in that
Hmm.
class right now, so right now I think we just got up to Nixon and the protest. So
Yeah.
we're I've done enough research. I've done a lot of research into Thailand, and then you're gonna have to correct me on the name because I don't know if I'm gonna say it right. Is it Utapo?
Utapau.
Utapao?
Utapau.
Okay, Utapao. I'll have to switch that up in my head.
Utapau.
Yeah, I
Utapau.
wasn't sure how to say it.
Yeah,
Utapao?
everybody out here, I see Thailand, on YouTube or something. I'll watch it. They'll call little towns like Pattaya, and they call it Pattaya, Pattaya, and I'm going, no, it's Pattaya, Pattaya.
Cool, cool. Okay. So if
Because you've been
I
to all these places.
uh okay, that's gonna be cool then. So Utapao.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
about 30 miles from the Cambodian border,
Yeah.
and it's probably about 90 or 100 miles to Vietnam.
Okay. So I would like to say that this is like more of a conversation and it's your interview. So like any questions or any stories that you want to tell, you can go ahead and tell them. Um, just
Oh, really?
whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about. So I
Well,
have,
did you ever get into the draft?
yeah,
How,
we've talked about the draft some. I think that's coming
yeah.
up either next class or the class after that. We're gonna talk in depth about it. So,
Yeah, well, that was really what incited most of the riots and stuff.
mm-hmm.
Everybody was not happy with the government telling them to go to war, and they didn't want to go to war. And the young people from the colleges, Berkeley, primarily out in California, they wanted to protest anything that was said. But
Yeah,
and that was back in the day when we had Woodstock. You remember
I
reading about Woodstock?
love Woodstock.
Well, that was the year I was in Thailand. No, I was in North Dakota when they did it in '69.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in North Dakota, hadn't gone to Thailand yet. They had Woodstock, and there was it was bigger than what they thought, things like that. But that was the I guess the culture was about that. That was one of the foreboding things of culture, with that and
Yeah.
the Beatles, and you know. But the music was all, Black Sabbath and oh golly, I'm trying to think of
Janis
some of the names of it.
Joplin, Jimi
Yeah,
Hendrix.
yeah,
I'm
Jimi
real
Hendrix.
I'm real big into the music, especially the 60s and stuff.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, it was very big then. Did you ever watch the movie Good Morning Vietnam?
I don't think I did.
Watch that. That's Robin Williams, the actor that died.
Yes, sir.
Check that out. You can see it probably online somewhere. I don't know where, but Good Morning Vietnam. Look at that show and you'll get a primary. It'll open your eyes to exactly what's going on.
Nice. I
But
have
that was
I have some questions
okay.
if we want to go through them, and it's kind of like I'm going to ask the questions, but you take the stories and you just go off with them and tell me whatever you feel like telling me.
Okay.
Okay. So I kind of first just want to talk about your early life, kind of before the war and stuff, and just to get some of that.
High
So
school.
yeah. Oh well, when and where were you born?
I was born in Beaumont, Texas, at a place called the Beaumont Infirmary, which was a birthing center at the time, back in the day. But we were raised as poor family, but we didn't know it. We always had food to eat, had lots of freedom running around as kids. And I think 10, 11 years old, I had a paper route. And, we delivered papers at 3, 4 in the afternoon after school. We'd have to go through our paper route, and then we'd have to get up at 4 in the morning, 3:30 and 4 o'clock, and go, and cold and rainy and anytime. And at 10, 11 years old, you go up there and fold your papers and go ride through downtown Beaumont and that was my route,
Mm-hmm.
and I had all the homeless people, but nobody bothered anybody. I'm 10 years old and going in old hotels and putting out papers, walking halls, but and just went to school like everybody else, right in their neighborhood. Went to elementary school, and then went to James Bowie Junior High School in Beaumont, Texas. From back then, it was seventh, eighth, and ninth grade. And I was, of course, an athlete. I was so fast, and I could run like a wild Indian. But I went out for football, and I was so glad that they cut me. I was, oh my gosh, this hurt. It was hot and nasty, and I said, I always. So he said, go play basketball. So I got on the basketball team. One of the things that was really neat about the basketball through from my seventh grade all the way to the senior in high school, the guys that I played with, from all of our neighborhoods, we had probably 7 or 8 elementary schools that went to that one junior high school and a middle school, if you will. And we won 102 games nonstop. Nobody beat us. We made Sports Illustrated.
Oof.
We
That's
we were in the back page, where they always notarize people,
yeah.
honorable mention. And we won 102 nonstop games before anybody beat us. They beat us 51-50. We were seniors, and just about, I think, because everybody went out and partied, during prom or something, and we we lost the game. But it was fun. It was a good experience. We had a great coach, and that's all I did in high school was chase girls and play basketball.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So even when I got over into the service, that's what I did. I traveled. I tell everybody I went to Vietnam one time and I played a basketball game. Of course, I was trained to fight. I had weapons, had everything, but still, yeah, just that's what they wanted to do in the Air Force. They took pride in that stuff. And I remember one time when I was playing over in when I finally got to Thailand, to jump ahead a little bit in basketball.
Yeah.
Uh, one of the my chief, I was an air traffic controller, and I was in crash rescue, and one of my chiefs said he couldn't let me go to these ball games anymore because I would work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and on Thursday I would leave, get on an airplane, and fly away to Sri Lanka or Philippines or Bangkok or upland uh, Thailand, because we went all over the Southeast Asia and just fly and go play ball.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I can't let you go anymore. I says, okay. So I went and told the coach. So uh, the next morning, probably about 8 o'clock, I heard this announcement over the PA. It said, Sergeant King, report to Chief's office. So I went to Chief's office, and there was this little 2-star general. And boy, everybody snapped to, and I walk in, and it said, Sergeant King reports his orders. And this general walks over and puts his arm around my shoulder, and he said, Sergeant King will play on my base basketball team. That's an order. And he walked out. So guess what I did? I played basketball. And we won the Asian Championship. We were really good. We beat China. We beat Sri Lanka. We beat India. We played all of Thailand and Laos and Cambodia and
So
Philippines,
you
Hawaii. Went to Hawaii, yeah.
you played for the U.S. team?
The Air Force, yeah.
Oh, the Air Force team. That's
Yeah, the U.S. Air Force. We had a couple of guys from the Army played with us. One was from Satahip, which is right there by Pattaya, which is, if you ever look up Thailand and look around, you'll see Pattaya is the summer home for the king and the queen. That's where they stay at. It's the beautiful beaches and stuff. But that's what I did. I bounced on trampoline, laid in the sun, and drank a lot of Coca-Colas. Had a good time. But yeah, we went to high school, and it came time. I went to French high school in Beaumont, Texas, and graduated in '67. And it was pretty hard pressed because the war had started in '65. They moved the Marines in and started setting up bases, and it was getting pretty tough. I've met a few guys who were there in the first slaughters. They were kind of slaughters. It was really bad.
yeah.
Americans lost a lot of people in there. And then um, I I went to basic training in Lackland Air Force Base, and we got out of there after 6 weeks of training. They sent me to Biloxi, Mississippi, and I became an air traffic controller. I was there for about 3 or 4 months, I guess, and they sent me from Biloxi, which is, beaches. You've been there before.
Mm-hmm.
And from the beaches, I went all the way to Minot, North Dakota, which Air Force has a lot of different divisions. And the one I was in was SAC. They call it Strategic Air Command. And I was in, which is the big airplanes, the B-52s and the tankers and all that big stuff, the bombers. And I was there from 69 to, golly, no, 68. 68 to 69. I was there for a little over a year. So I think it was in July of 69. They shipped me to Thailand. Well, I got to come home to Texas for a 30-day leave before you went overseas. So I flew home and I enjoyed my time and everything. But anyways, they ship you to an air base out in California so you can get trained for your M16 training for your weapon,
Mm-hmm.
So I went out there to Hamilton Air Base, which is just north of Sausalito and San Francisco. And I went there and they keep you there for like 10 days, maybe 12, 14, 2 weeks at most. And of course that was, you're a regular serviceman, then you're not in training. So you kind of got a little more freedom, it's more like a job than anything else.
Yeah.
And I had cross-trained over into crash rescue when I was at Minot. I got out of air traffic control because it was very stressful. I got out of it. And so I got into crash rescue. They said there's 3 things you can do if you want to cross-train. You can be a cook, you can be a policeman, or you can be a firefighter, crash rescue. And I said, I think I've worked with those guys and I know those guys. So I trained over that. So I was proficient in ATCO and I was proficient in crash rescue by the time I got out. So, but anyways, they ship you to Hamilton Air Base in San Francisco, which is no longer there. I think they finally closed it, but they knew that I was an ATCO, so they kind of kept me a little longer because they were shorthanded in their tower.
Yeah.
And they were a training base more than anything, just to protect the West Coast. And I worked in there for like 3 weeks before they shipped out. I shipped out later. I thought for a minute that they might keep me, but they didn't. They let the orders go on through. They just TDY me, got temporary duty me to Hamilton. So I stayed there for a little while. Then I finally got on a big old Continental jet airliner and they flew me 11. It was 5 hours to Hawaii and 11 hours to the Philippines and another 4 hours to Bangkok, Thailand, which I was there. But go ahead. What's your question?
Oh, just kind of to backtrack a little bit, but can you tell me kind of about like LBJ's presidency and I guess Kennedy right before that? Because that was when you were in high school, right?
Yeah, I was in the 9th grade when Kennedy got shot. I was at Bowie Junior High School, and they announced over the speaker for everybody to come to the auditorium. So we all went to assembly, and they turned on a big TV there, black and white TV, and we watched the assassination. Everybody cried and everything else, but it was really not. Kennedy was a Democrat, but he wasn't. His the way he talked and everything, and some of his platform was totally different than the Democratic Party. He kind of winged it pretty good, but he was very, very intelligent, and I kind of think it kind of got under the Democratic Party's skin. I think that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And LBJ was a big old redneck from Texas, and he was just a loudmouth in Congress. He wasn't liked very much. A lot of people didn't like him, but him and his wife, they were rich ranchers out there in Austin, Texas. They were just, and he kind of took over, and he kind of did what the Democratic Party wanted to do, which was try to end the war, but he escalated everything. I mean, he moved 400,000 troops in there and did a ton of stuff that was just angry. Boy, made all the university people mad, and the colleges were up in an uproar, and the young people were having to flee to Canada because the draft.
Yeah.
And and I was in college, and whenever I got drafted, and I just did, I just got out of high school. You know the feeling where you just don't feel like doing academics anymore. You're going, and I would show up, and I did this. I finally just, made zeros on everything, so I just finally quit. But here come the first semester, and I didn't do very well, so I went to work. I was working at a Texaco service station, and I knew the draft was pressing on me, and I went because I was 1A, man. I mean, I was ready, you know, and
Hmm.
it was pressing on you. So sure enough, I said, Mom, I might as well go ahead. So I went down to the Air Force and signed up for the Air Force, and they got me on the bus within a week or so, and rode me over to Houston, Texas, on a bus with a bunch of other uh, enlistees. Is what we were. We weren't drafted. But on Wednesday morning, and that was on Tuesday. On Wednesday morning, my draft notice showed up at the house. My mom called a hotel over in Houston, said, "You got a piece of paper here, I want to know if from the federal government wanting you to report for the Army, the Marines, you get to choose." And I went, "Well, right on there and send it back, just tell them I've already signed up for the Air Force." So,
Yeah.
so there was no pressure on that. I'd already raised my hand in Houston on Tuesday morning, so I was in the Air Force, and then they put us on a bus and shipped us to Lackland Air Base in San Antonio. I was there for 6 weeks. So, but I was such a good athlete. I could run, the mile. I could do a 4 minute mile real easy, So I'd run off and leave everybody. And of course, they put me in air traffic control because they had plans on making me a forward air controller,
Hmm.
which is the guy that's in the foxhole between the enemy and the good guys, and you're the guy that jumps out of the foxhole and runs and throws the smoke grenade at the enemy so that the airplanes can hit him. And their life expectancy was about a minute.
Yeah.
From the time you got in country, you only lived about a minute. And I said, I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah.
So I said, no, I don't want to do that. So, anyways, that was what their plan was. After I got out of there, and they were, after about 3 years in the service, I figured out what those drill instructors were doing. They were trying to get people into certain, uh, uh, occupations, and they wanted you because I was supposed to went to Shepherd Air Base or something for some kind of medical something. I don't know what that was, but they changed it and sent me to Biloxi.
Hmm.
And but what was neat about it was just for between me and you was the guy I went with. His name was Corey Wells. His dad was a two-star general, and Corey was our squadron leader because he had ROTC and he had one stripe on his shoulder already, so he was on his arm. So he was trained already, and he and I became good friends, and we went to Biloxi together, became roommates. And his dad would come by with the general's car and pick us up and take us to the officers' mess. And we had some fun times. I said, well, this is cool. I mean, I was scared, shaking in my boots. Here I am, a little basic airman, and you're riding in a general's car.
Yeah.
But we got to do some good things. It was fun, and you got out there and you were free, and you could have an automobile. You could do what just about anything, but you had to report to duty and you had to be on time. And it taught you a lot of respect and honor, and taught you how to do things, the things that college teaches, how to be responsible.
Hmm.
But that's what I say. If they would just bring back the draft, that would shut everybody up. And everybody go, oh, I gotta go report to fighting this war over there in the Middle East.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
it was LBJ was not liked. He was a very very even when he came on TV, it kind of just irked your jaw. You kind of looked at him and went, oh my goodness.
Hmm.
But he was not a popular president at all. He wasn't.
Yeah.
And
Did
then, of course, Tricky Dick came in, Nixon, and he shut the war down in '75.
Yeah. He um he took presidency in 69, right?
Yeah, yeah, from January '69. He won the '68 election
Yeah.
and got what's his name out of there, LBJ, and
Mm-hmm.
Lady Bird was his wife.
Yeah.
She was the rich one. She had all the money,
Could
but
you
she was.
tell me some of the dates for the places that you were and like when you volunteered and stuff?
Well, I went in February 26th of 1968. I graduated in September. Went to Lamar University. It was back then. It was Lamar Tech. They called it. It was the College of Technology and Engineering. And I went there, and I really didn't do well at it. I wasn't carrying a full load. I didn't care. I was just tired of
Mm-hmm.
school. And so by February, the draft was on you. After Christmas, I signed up, and in February 26th of 1968, I joined. So I had 4 years to do. In the Army and the Marines, you had 2 years to do. You could do 2 or 4 in the Marines. The Navy was 3 or 4 years, whatever you want to do, but the Air Force was solid 4 years. And the Air Force was an easier route as far as going into the service, and it still is. And you can get some rank on you. You make some pretty good money, and you had time off, and it was a lot easier. Except in Minot, North Dakota, it was cold as a 65 below. I mean, it was cold. I mean, you put every bit of gear on that you could get, and you would try to walk 2 blocks to the chow hall, and you couldn't make it. You had to go back. I mean, you would have froze to death.
So, you went.
But
How did
yeah,
you
that
end
was
up in North
February.
Dakota?
Well, in February, I went to Lackland. Of course, they kept me there until March, like April the 15th is a close date that I left Lackland. And I went home on leave for 2 weeks and that caught a bus. No, no, take that back. Take that back. I left San Antonio and got on a bus with a whole bunch of other guys because there was a lot of troops. There was probably 12 to 15,000 troops over there in different squadrons. I was in Squadron 126, and they teach you everything: how to do a guard, how to be a guard. You had to pull your kitchen duty. You had to rake leaves. They'd send you over to the hospital and work and clean floors. And there was different duties, but they just used you as a basic trainee. And then you had to, learn how to march. You had to learn how to handle a weapon. They took you to rifle training. You had to learn military jargon, things like Sergeant King reports his orders. You had to report, and you learn how to salute. You learn how to keep your mouth shut, and learn how to do your little duties, and that was it. And they would give these inspections, and lieutenants, young lieutenants who they were in charge of different squadrons would come in and do inspections and turn your bunks over and just yell and scream at you. And where's your guns? Where did you hide this? Where is that? Do you have any drugs? And nanny boy, they always messed with you. And you always had to be sharp as a tack, and you had to, you know, keep your fatigues clean, and you had to, it was tough. And they issued you all of your stuff, your toothbrush, and then like every 2 weeks, no, it wasn't 2 weeks, we finally got to go and get our paycheck. My first paycheck was $92 after being there a month. I
Mm-hmm.
was making $92. I was making $98 a month, and they took like $6 out for taxes. And you're there a month. Of course, they pay for all your food, your clothing, they pay everything. You don't have to do anything. But then one of my experiences, well, I'll tell you that in a minute. But you learned how to march people, and you learned how to be a leader. You learned some people were leaders, and some people were very shy, and they just showed up and did their job, and that was it. But most things they taught you to be gregarious, and of course in air traffic control they teach you to talk. Because you have to talk quickly. Papa Tango 197, you're clear for takeoff. Things like that.
Yes,
You have
sir.
to you have to talk to them. Well, they put me on a bus and sent me straight with a bunch of other guys, two loaded buses all the way to Biloxi, Mississippi. And we got off there, and that was all new to us. We were young boys, and we were, no hair. We were shaved, and man, everybody that even looked at us, we were rigid, man. We didn't want to get in no trouble. We kept our butts clean, and get up early in the morning, do our all of our PT, we called it, physical training. We did all of that and got all that done. And we'd go, they'd say, well, today you got to go peel potatoes at the kitchen, or you got to go do this, or you got to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got around a little bit, so I had a good memory, and I could remembered all of the base. I remember where everything was. And I remember one day they gave us the training for all military. They get it. We got a little bit of it at basic at Lackland, but they give you this training about syphilis and gonorrhea and about nuclear weapons and about this, boy, it's stuff that you don't hear every day,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of giggling going on, and there's 400 guys in this auditorium, and it's kind of funny, and you just sit there and watch the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we all got outside, and everybody's standing on the curb, and this five-star or five tick sergeant, five stripe sergeant, anybody know where building 6409 is? And I went, yes, sir, I do. He said, well, line these people up and march them all over there. And I went, oh, golly, what are you talking? Me march 400 people, over to building 6409, which is about 6 blocks away. And he said, then dismiss them over there, which is kind of the center of the whole Biloxi over there. So I got all these people. That got me 5 guys, and we split them all in 5 different groups. We had about 100 people in each group, and I'm up there in the front, boy, and I'm taking off down there. I said, all right, forward, march, and we all started marching down this road. I looked back, and it looked good, and I said, okay, road guards out. And had road guards that go out and stop the traffic, and we'd march right on through. Well, I turned down this street, and was headed to 6409 over there, which wasn't but about 2 blocks away. And it was a one-way street, and I'm going the wrong way. We had to stop cars and back them up, and it was I tell you, I said, I won't do that again. Don't volunteer for nothing, So I kind of got in trouble a little bit, but I didn't get in trouble. No, we got over there and made it, but I know everybody was surprised to see this whole 400 men marching out of this one-way street and marched them across the main boulevard, and we all halt there, and I said dismissed, and the guy would echo down the line, dismissed, dismissed, and everybody scattered. And I went, oh man, my heart was coming out of my chest. But and that's some of the things you learned in the service. You learned to do that. Of course, you had a lot of free time. You could get on the base bus and ride out to the beach, and you didn't have no money, but you could go to the beach,
Yeah.
And you could meet girls, and you could do things, listen to music, and meet people, and have fun. You didn't have no nightlife. You had to be, you had the curfew you had to be in, because we were PATs, which is, they called us PATs because we were persons awaiting training.
Mm-hmm.
So I did all of that there, and then they gave me orders to go to Minot, North Dakota, and everybody looked at me and went, how did you get? Me and one other guy got it. And I went, I don't want to go to Minot, man. So I came home for 30 days after that. I got, 2 weeks. I'm sorry. 2 weeks after that, I came home back to Beaumont. Then I got on an airplane, and it flew me from Beaumont on a little twin engine DC-3, I think it was, maybe a DC6, maybe, or 7. But anyway, that was all they had back then. They had very few jets,
Mm-hmm.
So I flew into Dallas, got on an airplane, and they flew me right on up to North Dakota. And I wore when I left Beaumont, it was 98 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
You had short sleeve on, little khaki uniforms, and you had you always had to be in uniform everywhere you went. And I did notice that people wouldn't talk to you. They didn't like you. And, they weren't like now you see in the airports, you see people being nice to the military and giving them food and, taking care of them and applauding them and clapping and stuff. But back then, they didn't like you. They didn't want to be around you, and da-da-da-da-dee. But I flew in and got off the airplane up there in Minot, North Dakota. It was like 52 degrees or something. It was like, oh my gosh. The wind was blowing like 40 miles an hour, man. I was, oh my gosh, where am I? And they put you on a little taxi and rode you 12 miles out of town to the air base and all new territory, you know.
Hmm.
But you met a whole new crew of people and new friends, new stuff. It was kind of exciting. You meet some strange people. There's some who liked house cleaning, man. There was people who liked to iron clothes. They enjoyed it. And you're there going, what? This guy enjoys ironing fatigues. He would iron everybody in the whole dormitory. He'd iron their fatigues for them, charge them 15, 20 cents, make a little bit of money.
Hmm.
And he'd stand there and sing and iron the clothes. Okay, weirdo. But it was fun. They had a big flight line. And of course, they had nuclear weapons and they had ICBM missiles. So you got to fly out to the missile sites and you got to get on helicopters. And you got into the workforce of the Air Force. It wasn't, you got out of the training area and got into the real nuts and bolts of the Air Force, which is amazing. I mean, it's stuff that, I mean, I remember I was on line standby one night. And it was so cold outside that I was in a pickup with the heater running wide open, and it was 27 degrees inside the pickup. I mean, and you look out the window, and there's a guard standing out there. He's an AP, an air policeman with a dog, and he's standing in it, and it's 45 below zero, and he's got to be a 2-hour shift out there on the flight line, and you're going, wow. I remember all the snow bunnies. They were everywhere. I mean, you could chase them or do whatever, but they were everywhere.
Yeah.
And I remember an air crash. They had a B-52 that lost all the electronics. They shoot a lot of touch and goes. The first crash I saw, I was in the tower over there, and they had to build this runway, which the runway was probably 3 miles long. It was pretty 14, 15,000. I think it's 12,000 feet, but it had to overrun. But you could land B-52s on it easily, and KC-135 tankers, which were the refueling thing. But they also had jets. They were F-102 darts, they called them, which was a swept wing jet that they kept in hangars, and they were on standby. I mean, you would see the guys, the klaxon horns would go off, and they would run out of the base ops and run across there and get in their planes. They'd fire them up, and I'm telling you, when the doors came up on that thing, they'd come out of the doors, and they had about a 45-degree turn to hit the runway, and I mean, their tires were squealing around that corner. Those dudes were doing at least 150 miles an hour when they got to that turn. And then they hit the afterburners, and man, they were in the air. I mean, you could count to probably 50 from the time that door opened, and they were off the end of the runway. It was amazing, man. I mean, it's stuff in the Air Force that you just go, wow. And I've talked to guys who, I had a friend who was a major in the Marines, and he would check out he'd been in there for 20-something years, and he would check out a plane here in Tampa. And they say, well, he's got business at Langley Airfield up in Washington, D.C. So he had to fly to Washington. So he would check out a F-111 from Tampa up here at MacDill Air Force Base. And he said you could set the computer on that jet for 40,000 feet. He said that thing would take off, and you get it off the end of the runway, the computer kicked in, and it would turn straight up. And he said you couldn't even take your finger to shut it off. He said when it got to 40,000 feet, it leveled off. He said, man, it's amazing. He said he left here and went to Langley in Washington. It took him 45 minutes. He was in the approach pattern. And he said those jets, he said, you're running at 1,500 miles an hour.
Wow.
He said you can take off at Lackland. That's 110 miles across Florida to the Atlantic. He said I take off the end of the MacDill runway, and he says I hit the afterburners and I turn left, and you count to 12, and you can see the Atlantic Ocean. I said, whoa. He said it's amazing. He said you got to hang on, boy. But I told him I'd like to take a ride with him. He said, "Well, I'll take you out." I said, "Yeah, I just want one of those little slow rolls." He said, "No, no, I'll give you one of those corkscrews." I went, "No, I'm not going with you." But that's a story for here. But my first crash up there in Minot, they drug a big giant ditch along the side of the runway that was about 40, 50 feet wide. And when they would find these big rocks out there, and when they were, cleaning the foundation to build the runway out there was 24 inches deep, and the overruns were like 3 foot deep, solid concrete. So the runways were really, really built well, but they had that long ditch, and the tower was on the back side of the ditch. And it was a pretty tall tower. It was brand new, and it was really nice. It had all the latest stuff, which it's all been changed out nowadays. And we were up there in this. I actually was not up there. I was kind of down in the break room, which is about 3/4 the way down. And somebody, you could hear the the tension in the tower, and they call it, the tension got pretty tight. And I stepped outside on the little deck, and there was this jet coming right towards the tower. F-102 jet had lost one of its right landing gears and was corkscrewing down the runway. It went off in that ditch. Of course, when it went in the ditch, it went about 50 feet and stopped because, all the rocks and stuff down in there. So I jumped and run down the ladder. I wasn't very far, but I noticed up on top the guys had already thrown the lanyards out, big ropes to evacuate the tower. They were
Yeah.
ready to get out of there. They thought they were going to get hit. And so I ran over there, I was, well, I wasn't the first one there. I was probably the second, but there was, I mean, thing was smoking, no fire or nothing. Just, it was hot.
Hmm.
And the pilot was out. He was out cold. And I went over there and reached in there and opened this little door on the left side of the plane and pulled this lanyard, and it blew that canopy off of that thing about 100 feet in the air, and it landed way back there behind it and got up on there. I hit the D-ring, and I straddled the nose of the airplane, and I lifted the guy up out of there, and I set him on the side of the plane and handed him down to two other guys.
Hmm.
And about then, the fire department got there, and of course, they sprayed foam everywhere. But nobody said anything great about anybody. What happened here? I don't even know if it ever got in a report or anything. I was like, okay, they never even asked.
Yeah.
But anyway, the guy turned out he was okay. He just knocked him out. He had a bruise on his head, but that was it. And the next one, they had a B-52 that had lost all of its power on the left side, and it barreled into the. I'd already cross-trained over in the crash rescue. I was a firefighter then, and it was probably 6, 8 months later, maybe longer, maybe almost a year. But anyways, that big B-52 ran off the runway. Well, it actually didn't. It was airborne, and it just dove right in. You could see whenever I got over there, uh, walking around finding bodies and stuff, because everybody died on board. There's 9 people on there. ECM operator, the navigator, the pilot, co-pilot, and the electronics man there. And then these planes up there didn't have a tail gunner, so it only had 8 men on there, but
Hmm.
it had a tail gunner. The tail gunner was operated up from the cockpit, really right behind the cockpit. He didn't have to ride back in the back of the plane. But anyways, you see some of them jettisoned out because they have a high altitude ejection. They don't have like a fighter, it has they can eject off the deck of a carrier.
Yeah.
Whereas a B-52, you can't. You got to ride it down. If you're below 5,000 feet, you don't even have a chance to get out of the plane.
Hmm.
And they all died in there. But I was over there doing rescue and walking around, and it was cold, but it was the fire, and the plane was indistinguishable. They couldn't even hardly find the cockpit, and everybody was looking for and I found a piece of leg here and a piece of leg there, and the one guy had jettisoned right into the ground. He was still sitting in his seat. Both of his arms were broke off, and his face was pulled way down. It was, yeah, the impact just slaughtered him.
Yeah.
And I was standing next to this landing gear, and I was kind of leaning on it, and the tires on a B-52 are really on all airplanes. There's a lot of metal in it,
Mm-hmm.
little shavings, and they'll stick to you. But I had a crash rescue coat on, so it didn't bother me. But I was leaning there, just waiting to see what's going to happen. The big wigs hadn't got out there yet, and I walked away. Somebody said something that they found the cockpit, so I kind of started walking that way. I got about 30 feet away from that landing gear, and it was burning on the backside. The brakes and all the landing gear was burning back there, and there's real bright burning. You can't look at it. And the magnesium is what they are, the brakes and all. So it was burning behind there. I got like 30 feet away, and those tires exploded. I mean, there was 20, 30 seconds from death right there.
Yeah.
It would have killed me. And I walked away from it, and man, I mean, that landing gear and all them tires went sky high, and you could hear the silence when that thing hit the ground. You went, oh my gosh. And then this major, or the light colonel or whatever he was, told everybody, if you got a weak stomach, you need to get out of here. There's a lot of blood and guts here. If you don't need to be touching anything. If you've got a weak stomach, well, we found the pilot,
Mm-hmm.
and he was, you could see down his windpipe. You could see his bottom row of teeth. No head. It was gone. And, of course, you try to pick him up. He had lots of heat and stuff. And this one guy tried to pick him up under the shoulders. I got under the back of the knees, which actually was just full of just liquidy skin because the body had already been, I mean, he was broke up so bad. And I picked up under the knees to pick this flight suit up to put it in one of the body bags. Well, this kid that picked, I don't remember his name. I think it was Horwath was his name. He was a Jewish guy from Connecticut or something. And he puked right in the middle of that guy's belly. When you picked him up, his body kind of fell apart and the odors came out. I just turned my head and kept going, but he puked. Well, that light colonel screamed and yelled at him to get away, get away.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other guys, and we all got him put in that body bag. And I went, oh man. So it was a pretty telltale experience, and of life and death and tragedy, and of course accident, and what your job is really all about. So there was a lot to do in the Air Force, and lots of mistakes could be made, and things said that you couldn't take back, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then you had to deal with your social life. And when we were in Biloxi in 1968, they let women in the Air Force to start being in air traffic control, radar and radio, and scope dopes is what they called them. But our squadron where I was at was the premier squadron. It was the one that all the inspectors came to look at when they brought visiting generals and stuff there, because we kept our place beautiful. And we had to give our squadron to the ladies when they came in. We had to go to the squadron next door. But I was almost finished with training anyway, so I was just hanging around waiting for orders.
Yeah.
But then I got the orders from Minot. I was so glad to get out of there. It was so cold, and golly, there were no pretty girls up there. Minot has no pretty girls. If you saw one pretty girl, there was 14 guys hanging around her, and you just kind of laughed. It was really funny.
Yeah.
And the social life was kind of slow, and they had on-base stuff going on, but not a lot. But you kind of stayed in the fire station and had a dormitory and had, just regular life. It was a job.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got transferred to California and got my training and stuff, and then went to Thailand. And that's when you kind of got, oh my gosh. First thing I noticed about when I got off the plane at Don Muang Airport in Bangkok was the place stunk. I mean, smelled like, oh my gosh. And of course, found out later it was the Klong. The Klong is where all their sewage goes, open ditches. That's where all of their waste goes.
Yeah.
And it stunk the whole. If you ever go to India or Asia or someplace, you'll always take you a fresh set of clothes in a Ziploc bag. When you get ready to get on the plane to leave, you go in the bathroom and throw your clothes away, all of them, and put that suit of clothes on and leave, because that odor will be with you all the way. And it didn't leave me for like 2 months after I got back to the States.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we had a big bad crash in Thailand too. We had a B-52 run off the end of the runway loaded with bombs, and they all went off. I mean, it blew a hole in the ground 23 feet deep. It blew an air chopper. HH-43B was the crash rescue chopper. Blew it out of the sky and killed one of two. It killed a pilot, co-pilot, and one of the EMTs in the back. But the firefighter who was in there, Turner, he and I played basketball together. He survived. He was in the hospital for a long time. But nice guy. I mean, nicest guy. Black guy, but he was really nice. And it blew their chopper out of the sky, and when that thing exploded, they were going back in. You could hear them over the radio. Well, I was behind a fire truck that weighed 66,000 pounds. And when that explosion, they pulled us away because in the Air Force or in any ammunition, if it's engulfed in flames, it turns white because it has a paint on the outside of the bomb,
Mm-hmm.
or bombs that will turn to an ash white when they have fire on the weapons, on the armaments. But when it penetrates, the heat penetrates the weapon and it gets to the explosive inside, you see red smoke. When you see red smoke, you don't go in, you stay away.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw the red smoke, so we turned out. We were about a little over a half mile away, and we turned sideways, and everybody got out, hid behind the trucks. There was a bunch of us. And when that explosion went off, all those bombs, he had 24 external 750 bombs and 88 internal 500 pounders. I mean, that was a lot of bombs, a lot of weapons. Yeah. And it went off, and my ears rang for 2 weeks. But it lifted that truck 6 feet off the ground and threw me down that runway about 30, 40 feet, just rolling.
Yeah.
And we all came up, I was laughing. I was going, that's something you don't see every day. It was amazing, man. And it threw shrapnel. It threw bombs. There was bombs that didn't explode. And it threw a couple of bombs 10,000 feet away, 2 miles. One of them landed on a hooch, one of the hooches, and there's a guy asleep inside there, and it hit the front porch and tore the whole front out of the hooch, and he's standing there in his underwear. I remember seeing the pictures. But if you look that up, you'll see at Utapao, that crash in I think it was July of '69. Yeah, mm-hmm. July of '69. You'll see that crash, and it'll talk a lot about it. But it was amazing. I mean, you're standing on the flight line there, and all of a sudden you see this jet coming, and you're looking at your radar, and you're going, what is that? You know, it doesn't have a call sign, it doesn't have a notation, you don't have it on the board, and this jet goes down your runway about 4 feet off the runway at 1,700 miles an hour, and he goes out across the Bay of what they call that? It was the Siam, the Bay of Siam, which is the Bay of Thailand. But anyways, and then it turned back east. It was just a Russian fighter. Came and buzzed our field. All kinds of stuff. You'd see little windshields shot out of planes, and you'd see all sorts of stuff, man. You round a corner one day, and they had revetments that protected the B-52s when they loaded them and fueled them. It separated the planes from each other. And I rounded a corner one day, and one of the bomb loading little tugs, they called them, they loaded bombs. Like they could load 2 500s at a time or 1 750, but had a little nose on them, and they would lift it up and hold it in place while they put the pins in, And he had run into one of those fuel tanks, and that whole revetment in there, I mean, they were huge. They were like 2 football fields wide and football field deep, and you could back a B-52 in there. And it had 12 feet, had 12 inches of of JP4 jet fuel all around that plane. And you're looking, going, what do you do now, Coach? It was trying to drain out of there. It had a great drainage system, but then that little utility startup unit, we call it a little generator, was running. Man, I went, oh no, we had to wait out there. And whenever you shut a generator down and it pops, it sparks,
Yeah.
Well, we threw a towel over that thing, man, and captured all the sparks to keep that thing from blowing up. I mean, you get emergencies and just shake your head and go, "Are you kidding me?"
Uh-huh.
But it was an experience,
Yeah.
and we did our part. We kind of helped the theater, and those planes would leave, and they were so loud. Three planes, three B-52s at a time. Of course, the KCs would take off. There would be three or four of them would take off, and they would hover in place because when the B-52s left, there'd be three sorties. There were three sorties of three airplanes. 9 aircraft would leave. They would make their turn to the east, and they'd head out over there, and then they would go bomb the factories and all in Hanoi and North Vietnam, and then they'd bomb the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They'd bomb wherever they told them to go.
Yeah.
Then they would turn right over the South China Sea and come back around and meet the KCs and refuel so they could come back, And they were sending the same B-52s from Guam, which was on the other side of China and Japan. Their B-52s were over there. They were coming and bombing too, so they dropped millions and millions of pounds. And they would come back and they would land. They would be a lot lighter. You could tell their bombs are gone, and their pins are flapping in the breeze, and they would land and all go home, and then 2 days later they'd load up and go again.
Mm-hmm.
But it was that was their job, and our job was to keep them in the air.
Yeah.
And I remember one day we were on line standby out there, and this equipment truck, MMS, was the maintenance people that took care of the B-52s. The pilots would come out on their own service van, but the crew that got the plane ready, which were the crew chiefs and stuff, they would we got a holler and say, "Hey, come with us, hurry, we need some help." So we okay, so we followed them, and there was this one spot where they parked the B-52 that was in a revetment. It was called Joliet 9, and we all pulled up there, and I noticed they were all lights on the front landing gear on this, and there was a 20-foot Cobra wrapped around the landing gear on that B-52. 20 foot long.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, and what we did, well, they got to pull in. This one captain, he was a co-pilot, got to pulling on his tail and messing with him, made him mad, and he'd come down. His hood was 8 inches wide. You're looking at this thing, looking at you 4 feet, and he could move, and you're going, you try to get away, and then he'd grab him again, they'd bring him back. And they said, well, get one of those hose sacks. We're going to put him in that sack. And I went, oh my gosh. I'm sitting there, of course I'm into it. I'm young and crazy and running around.
Mm-hmm.
But so they kind of got his attention. The captain went around behind him, and he grabbed that Cobra, and that Cobra went berserk. And I mean, almost got away. But we picked him all up. Oh, there's about 15 guys there. We picked him up, put him in that sack, and he put his head in, and they closed the sack and tied it up. Boy, he was squirming all over. Big old heavy thing, weighed 250 pounds.
Ooh.
We put him in the back of a pickup. Well, they had a beer garden over by the tower over where I worked over at operations, and they took the snake over there and put him in a cage with a gigantic boa constrictor. That boa, it was not an anaconda. It wasn't the python. It was a boa.
Mm-hmm.
And they always had a big board up there, and they took bets, 50-cent bet of what day that the boa would eat that rooster. They put a little banty rooster in there and feed him once a week, the one who was closest to the day and time won the kitty. It was usually about $15-20, and
Mm-hmm.
they put that snake in there too with that boa. Well, he went up in one tree, and the boa went up in the other tree, and Cobra stayed up in the tree and wouldn't come down. So they put 2 chickens in there to feed him, and they tried to feed him, and he would never eat. So the boa finally ate his chicken too. But but he finally died
Mm.
in the captivity. But there were plenty of them around there. When they'd have a brush fire, we'd be on line standby out there and following these guys because, of course, I played a lot of basketball. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you know what I got? I got to be in the truck and follow the crews around that sprayed Agent Orange around the perimeters and burn fires around there to get rid of the brush because they need to see the fences.
Yeah.
And snakes running everywhere. I'm like, oh my God, look at the snakes, man. I mean, you go 20 feet and see 5 snakes, and you're going, oh, golly. So I got to do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I worked, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was flying somewhere playing ball,
Yeah.
and then come back and work some more. So they put me on fire extinguisher maintenance. That's what I did. I went around and signed my little initials on these fire extinguishers. If they were in the green, good. If they had lost their pressure, I'd put them in the truck, bring them back to the shop, and fill them back up and get them right and seal them and take them back out.
Yeah.
And I had a good job. And they sent me back to England Air Force Base in Louisiana, in Alexandria, Louisiana. That's when I met your grandmother, and of course she and I was engaged when I went to Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got back, we got married, and we lived in Pineville over out in the north side of Alexandria, and I finished out my service over there, and we got out and moved back to Beaumont. That's what we did. And it was that was in '72, and of course I got in the fire department over in Beaumont, Texas, and I went to Lamar University. I got a degree in fire science, and I got a degree in what else was it? I don't even remember, something else. But then I went 3 years of engineering school, and I was a firefighter making $16,000 a year back in the early '70s. And me and your grandma lived in a trailer, and your Uncle Dusty was born, but in '72. So at least the Air Force paid for that, which was good.
Yeah.
Because I was they carried it over in '72. Said if he's born in that year, that they'll take care of the bills. So he was born in Beaumont, but he was paid for, which was good because we didn't have no money.
Yeah.
But so I joined the Beaumont Fire Department. I had the greatest job that you could ever ask for. I drove a Jeep around. We were the first in at all the fires, and we were the last ones to leave. Me and the chief were good friends. He was a battalion chief, but he was a great guy. And I often wondered about him after I left. But I got a call from one of the chemical plants over, and your grandma wanted to move back to Louisiana, so we sold our home in Vidor, Texas, and we moved back over to Simpson and bought 5 acres of land. I built a big old house, and then Greg was born, your dad,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked at the fire department out at Fort Polk, Louisiana, for a while. Of course, it wasn't paying nothing good, but I went to work at the chemical plants. They called me and said, "Yeah, we got a job down here we need a planner scheduler, and you got plenty of college. Come on." So I went down there, and I was the planner scheduler for Allied Chemical down in Baton Rouge. Went to work down there with a bunch of guys, old boys out of Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I ended up. Did my 4 years, which seemed like it drug on quite long.
Yeah.
And I remember going to on one of my times I was playing basketball, and we'd fly into Bangkok. We'd spend the night in Bangkok at a hotel. They always took good care of us, fed us, and whatever. And the next morning, we'd get on another plane. We'd fly to one of the bases up in Thailand, Takli or Utapao or Ubon, or we would fly to Vietnam. And we'd always fly to Bangkok. Well, anyways. I'd finished everything, and I had my last 5 days in country there, and I had all my stuff packed, and I'd moved out of the Utapao. I was staying at a hotel. I had 5 days, so I caught me a bot bus and rode 90 miles all the way to Bangkok. Stayed in a hotel up there. which they had my name all on there ready to go because they took care of your flight, everything. So anyways, I walked down, hung around Bangkok, eating here and there and da-da-da-dee. And then I went in, they had a little bar off of the front counter, and I heard a voice talking in there, a couple of GIs in there talking, had two girls with them. And man, I said, I know that voice. Who is that? And I walked into that little restaurant bar, and I walked right over to those two guys, and I looked down, and that was one of my best friends from high school. He was in the Army. He was on R&R from Vietnam, and they were drunk as cooter. They had two girls, and they were sitting in this little booth. And I went, Cecil, what are you doing here? He said, Sid, what are you doing here? So you ran into people,
Yeah.
It was really weird how you were halfway around the world, and you're just, wow, there's Cecil Osmond.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool. He came back home. He did his 2 years, did a year in Vietnam, and he came back home and went to work for a trucking company. And he was working on the loading dock one day, and a big truck backed in and crushed him against the dock and killed him. It's like a year after he got back in country. It was really weird.
Yeah.
Cecil Osmond. But you hear stories like that all the time,
Mm-hmm.
where your friend was and where this one was. And I go up to the VA now, and I run into guys that you go, and where were you at? Oh, man, I was at Tak Lee, man. I said, yeah, what'd you do up there? He said, well, I was in aircraft maintenance. And this guy's, 70 years old, 80 years old. They sit there and tell you stories. You want to hear some good stories? Go to the VA hospital.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you all about it. What this one did, what that one did.
Yeah.
And, do you remember such and such? Yeah. You remember that big old hill over there? Yeah, I climbed that hill. No way, man. Yeah. Just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Just memories, There was a lot of people over there, and a lot of them didn't come home. And we had a flight that'd go out of Utapao every once in a while they would fly a bunch of bodies in, and we'd fly them out of there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they brought them to us, because most of them left, Cam Ranh Bay, which is a big air base in Vietnam. They'd fly them straight to Manila and then fly them to Hawaii and back home.
Yeah.
For some reason, they came over there. I don't know if they had died in country or whatever. That's like talking to my wife, Jean Ann's, talking to Jean Ann's brother. He was in the Army for 2 years. And he went to Laos, which is, right across the river, the Mekong Delta from Vietnam.
Yeah.
But he couldn't wear his uniform. He was in civilian clothes. Yeah. And all I could get out of him was he was a lookout for the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And they would sit in this tower at night and count the number of movements on that trail and report them. And he said, if you ever get caught, you're not in the service. They had credentials that were civilian credentials and stayed in a hotel or a hooch, and they would walk around real quick. Even to this day, Jimmy's got this air about him that's kind of a quiet, secretive type,
Yeah.
One of those, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you,
Yeah. Yeah, because Laos was neutral, right? So everything that they did.
Not really. They were going through the if you ever read that about the killing fields of Cambodia and Laos, they killed people. It was a lot of warlords and stuff, just killing tribe after tribe. And they still don't know. They went one place where they started digging up these trenches and found thousands of skulls. They just kill people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a name for them. Phnom Penh was the capital. I was trying to think of the name of the outfit. They were very mean and nasty. And, they were critical of any kind of government foundation. They were just nasty. And nobody went to Laos. You stayed away from there.
Yeah.
Cambodia. But there was I did get to go while I was there. I went on a trip to the bridge over the River Kwai. You ever hear of that?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, there was a movie about it, and they destroyed the river, and that is back in the World War I or II. But it was, they had to destroy this thing. It was a mission. These British soldiers had to destroy the bridge with a train on it, and they did. But it's still there. I saw it. and it's way up in North Thailand, up in Chiang Mai. We went up and played a ball game up there, and we had the weekend before they could get us a flight back on Monday. They were gonna fly us straight back, so we had a whole day, and me and two of the basketball players, Jim and I, we got on a little bot bus, and it cost you like $1 for all of us to drive to. It took 20 baht for $1,
Mm-hmm.
and a baht is about a nickel, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's still that way. But anyway, you pay that money, ride in the back of a little pickup truck, and take you right up to it, and give you a little tour, and walk you up on the railroad tracks, and you buy some pineapple in a Ziploc bag and eat pineapple and drink a Coca-Cola. You know, you spend $2 and you've had a great day.
Yeah.
But that's what we did. We got to visit all the, you know, the floating market in Bangkok. I got to go see a lot of stuff. I remember one time we were walking down the street, and you're here with these basketball players. You got, you know, three of them are 6'6", 6'5", 6'8", and
Mm-hmm.
you're walking down the dark street of Bangkok, and all of a sudden this black Mercedes limo, not a limo, it was a stretch, but it pulled up, and man, this guy jumped out with guns and killed these two guys right on the street, across the street from us. And we were looking, and I said, oh, golly, we're in trouble, because I was the only one who had any sense. I
Mm-hmm.
said, I pushed everybody in this little bar. I said, get in here, get in here. You didn't see anything. Anybody asked you, didn't see nothing. You don't know what happened. All you do is you heard the noise.
Yeah.
So don't get into it. Anyways, we're in this bar, and we kind of had to stay in there because the police showed up, and they were catching witnesses, and they were doing all sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the limo, they grabbed these two guys, threw them in the back of the car, and drove off. Man, the blood was everywhere, and it kind of went, oh my God. But we went in this bar, so I just pushed them in there. Here's a bar, let's get in, get out of the way.
Yeah.
So we went in the bar, and we're standing there, and I started looking around. I'm going, there are no girls here. We were in a gay bar, and I was going, oh man, we're in trouble. And they had these Thai girls dressed up like, or Thai guys dressed up like girls, and one of them's making a pass at this black guy who was playing ball with us. And I was making, no, don't go with her. It was so funny.
Yeah.
That was our experience, you know.
Yeah.
But we found all the nice places to go, you know. They had little places you could go, out of the way places that served food and kali. I mean, it was, even back then, it's changed a lot now, I hear, but it's back then you could go to these little gardens where they had koi fish and waterfalls. You could sit there and spend $5 and, you know, eat everything in the house.
Mm-hmm.
But those were experiences, and it was a good experience for a young man, you know. But
Yeah.
I was ready to get back home, boy, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But that's my experience with the service, my 4 years. And I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed it. It was a good part of me. And, you know, I have a lot of medallions and stuff. You know, I keep a lot of military stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I still have my uniform and everything. And, you know, that it still fits me. You know, I weighed about 195 pounds when I left the service, and my uniforms, I still got it.
Yeah.
It's hanging in the closet, you know.
Yeah.
But I might take a picture of me with it and send it to you.
Yeah. I was gonna say
But I have
that would be some cool pictures if you sent me some of those.
yeah, and I have you know, I have all my stuff hanging on the wall. I have a my commemorative service medal, United States Air Force,
Mm-hmm.
tells where I was at. Technical Sergeant Sidney A. King, Strategic Air Command, the 307th Bomb Wing, 4758 Support Group, the 3rd Air Division, United States Air Force. It recommends you. It says from February 27, 68 to February 26 of 72.
Yeah.
And I'll just send you a picture of that.
That'll
And
be
I have all my medals, you know, my Vietnam medals and everything, all my rankings and everything. I have all of that. Probably could think of some more stuff for you, but pictures would probably do more than anything. I mean, it was really very casual and hot all the time in
Yeah.
Thailand. I was in the south of Thailand. They had rubber plantations, and you learn the language and you learn the people,
Yeah.
the culture. Some things you can't do. You know, one of the big things was you can never put your feet over a Thai person's head.
Yeah.
Oh boy, they would yell at you, you know. Your feet never go over the head. In other words, when you lean back and prop your feet up, no, no, you don't do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of religious stuff over there.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they were Buddhist, you know. I
Yeah.
got to go see the reclining Buddha, the golden Buddha, the emerald Buddha. I got to go and see all. There's just something to do while you're in Bangkok, you know.
Yeah.
You just go right around. And, you know, you had a few nickels on you, you could go somewhere, you know, and you can go back to the hotel and they feed you good and put you in a nice room, air conditioned swimming pool, and go play basketball and, and beat people. That's what we did.
Yeah.
But that was my experience in Thailand and Vietnam. And I did go to Vietnam one time. We landed. We were in a C-47 and we taxied to the transit ramp. And there was another C-47, I think, and another littler plane, like a ops planes, one of those observation planes. And they were smoking on the tarmac. They were smoking from the zappers last night. They got bombed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had mortars and they were firing them into the base, and they hit a couple of airplanes. And I looked at the guys and I said, guys, we're not going to be here very long. We're going to play our game and get out. We played indoors, I mean, outdoors. They had an outdoor net and bleachers, and we went over and beat the snot out of them old boys.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they were Air Force guys. I don't even remember the name of the place we were at. I
Yeah.
don't know, Tuiwa or wherever it was. Yeah, I don't even remember the name of it. Well, I hope I've helped you a little bit with your report. I can send you some more pictures or something. I'll give you a big
Um,
swath of those.
if you don't mind, I still have some more questions if you want to keep talking about it, because I'm
Sure,
really
I'm
enjoying
good.
all your stories.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah. So when you were talking about the basketball, can you like tell me what places you went to and like how the Vietnam War and the Cold War kind of impacted those places?
Well, everywhere in the Air Force, we were supports, is what we were. We were the support people. We would, you know, we weren't. I guess they had Air Force bases in Vietnam, but everything out and around Vietnam, bases around stuff, and it's being like when they had the Iraq War. They had in Saudi Arabia, we had an air base. That's where they supported the war in Iraq. That's, the planes would land there, and they would leave Israel, and they would leave, you know, Saudi Arabia, and they had air bases there that we would build. You know, then they built a big air base, you know, in Iraq, and they finally, that's how they did it. They support the war is what we did
Mm-hmm.
from above. You know, if you rule the skies, you rule the war,
Yeah.
and we ruled the skies. You know, I mean, it was really cool. It was but you know, LBJ pulled us out of the war too soon, or not? He didn't. Richard Nixon really did,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a Republican. LBJ was a Democrat. The
Yeah.
Republican, you know, get us out of the war, just like Trump does. Get us out of the war. You know, stop fighting so much. And just killing people is not good. You know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were more support than anything. They needed help. You know, we had choppers. We had the skies. You
Mm-hmm.
needed a jet, he'd be there in 3 minutes. He hadn't even left the ground yet, you know, and they were that quick and that fast. But that's Vietnam, man. It was part of everybody's life, and it just everybody came back, and there were so many people went to Canada trying to avoid the draft. It was a terrible. It was. I mean, they were burning their draft cards and
Yeah.
burning their bras and draft cards and moving to Canada.
Yeah.
There's probably some still up there, you know, won't come back.
Mm-hmm.
A
Did
lot of
you
them
like
just lived and died.
did you have any experiences like firsthand with any of the protests or anything like that or anyone you knew?
I, I remember in the airport one time in California when I landed at I guess it was San Jose was where I landed, south of San Francisco, because that's when they took me north through San Francisco to Sausalito, and up there in Pueblo Bay is where I was up at golly, I'm trying to think of the name of that place. I said it a while ago. That's what'll happen to you when you get old. Hamilton Air Force Base, but they there was a protest going on there, but they weren't on the property. They were out at one of the main roads. And when we left there, we were on a bus headed north. Or it wasn't a bus, it was a limo. There was maybe 6 of us in a limo. Not a limo, I guess it was a bus, one of those little buses. But
Mm-hmm.
they were protesting in the street, signs and screaming and cussing and yelling. Of course, that was California, They were, and Berkeley wasn't far away.
Yeah.
But just do the best you can, and take half of what you hear and don't, and don't believe half of what you see.
Yeah.
Just kind of make your own way and kind of understand life is real cruel and mean, and death doesn't mean a lot anymore. People walk around with an M16 and shoot a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Or like we had a fight down here in Ybor City the other night, and some guy pulls out a gun and just starts shooting. He ends up shooting like 12, 13 people and kills 2 people. And you're going, it was just a fight. It
Yeah.
wasn't like it was some planned execution, like some school bombing or something. It was just a fight.
Mm-hmm.
The guy got mad and pulled his gun. I mean, I remember taking a gun away from your Uncle Royce one time. He went to his truck, got a gun, was going to shoot this guy. Are you crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Went under his seat of his van and got a gun, pulled it out and pointed at that guy. And I grabbed that gun. I said, "What are you, crazy? You
Mm-hmm.
gonna go to jail tonight?" Golly, Uncle Royce was crazy, but he was a Marine.
Yeah.
But all that, that war and stuff with all the protests and everything, they had some, but there's not near as many protests as there were with with the Palestinians going on now.
Yeah.
With the Hamas and stuff and the Arabs and all that and people. I'm going, they need to outlaw where you have to wave a flag of some other country in a protest. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know this is America and you got freedoms, but wave the American flag. Or you ought to be
Yeah.
glad you're here.
Yeah.
But they're not. They just want to protest something. They don't know the whole story. I noticed it quieted down a little bit more when they saw the facts and stuff. It quieted down a little bit. But,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on over there. I really don't care that much. You kind of learn, close your doors in.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in this little spot right over here, this little half acre I live in, and this is
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
You
Especially
put in
like,
your 70, 75 years and then you leave this place,
yeah.
you
I
know.
mean, this late in life, you probably don't really need to hear all of it, you know?
Oh man, I don't care. I listen to it. I'm smarter than I act. Sometimes I like to just laugh things off and make jokes of everything. But
Mm-hmm.
I still got 132 IQ, and I can sit there and think about some stuff, and
Yeah.
But you just gotta go, okay, I'm not getting into that. But
Yeah.
put in your 40 years, your work, and then you can stop, take it easy, and do what you want, and get up when you want.
Yeah.
It's nice, but I'll send you some pictures, man, and stuff. And you got any more questions? I'm not doing nothing.
Um, let's see. What about so when Nixon took office, he kind of made a stance that he was gonna pull us out and Vietnamization, where he was gonna like put the war on the Vietnamese and kind of let them try to fight it. Did you like notice less people where you were, or like less B-52s or things getting pulled out?
No, we didn't. We didn't downsize at all in
Uh huh.
Vietnam or in Thailand. Thailand stayed because we were out of Vietnam, but we stayed. In fact, I talked to a guy not long ago, a couple of years ago, who was at Tak Lee, and he said he was there later after the war.
Mm-hmm.
It stopped in 75, May of 75. It was over, and they pulled everybody out of there. And they brought a lot of people with them, which was cool. It was just about the same as this Afghanistan thing that happened last couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was terrible. It was they shouldn't have done it that way. They should have took control of the place, moved everybody around where we wanted them, and then back out slowly.
Yeah.
But it was getting so terrible, and so much pressure on the politics of running this war, and it's costing a lot of money and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
and it was really not a good time. And Nixon, all he did was the Watergate, the tapes and stuff,
Yeah.
and that's like a slap on the hand from what they're doing now. They're finding people doing stuff now, like
Yeah.
like election fraud and all sorts of stuff with Trump and with with
Mm-hmm.
Biden, and you're going with Obama. They're finding stuff with Pelosi, and you're
Yeah.
going, oh my gosh, they're going through all this junk. This is like 100 times different than just that little old slap on the hand where they went in and stole a couple of tapes from some little safe in Watergate
Yeah.
offices. You're going, how stupid can you be? But it was a different time. In fact, if anybody acted the way they do right now, they call them communists and Marxists and whatever else. If
Mm-hmm.
anybody did that back in the 50s and 60s, they would throw you out of the country,
Yeah.
blackball you. You couldn't work. They would pull all of your credentials. I mean, you'd go miss. I mean, it was really, golly, they'd take you to put you in jail if
Mm-hmm.
you even sympathized with the communists or with the Nazis or the Russians or anybody. Boy, it was bad. It was like, whoa.
Yeah.
But now, you can go do whatever you want. You're kind of looking at it going, oh my gosh, I wish they'd start the draft up again. That shut them up.
Yeah.
Put them back in, put them on the front lines. Let them worry about it there. And I'm not sure how you feel about it, but I don't care. I talk about it anyways.
Yeah. No,
I'm
I'm
not,
willing to listen.
I'm, I'm not objective or I'm not unobjective about anything.
Yeah.
It's
No,
really
that's a
sad.
good way to be. I mean,
Yeah, well, fight about it, man.
yeah,
Hey, you
it's an
feel the way
educated
you have the
way.
right.
You just,
You have a right to say what you want to do, and I do too.
mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
whatever, you know. But yeah, I didn't know about the riots and stuff, and a lot of flag burning. There's a million people. I mean, you watched what was it? What's the show with old Tom Hanks,
Hmm.
where he was a soldier, went to Vietnam, and
Yeah. Was that Forrest Gump?
yeah, Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
I mean, Washington was like that. I mean, it was really, it was, and probably there's a lot more tales than that,
Mm-hmm.
and that people they were just marijuana everywhere. They were smoking dope and acting crazy
Mm-hmm.
and doing quaaludes and all sorts of stuff. I remember those names, those pills.
Yeah.
There was all sorts of drugs, and Haight-Ashbury was the big place out in San Francisco, out there at Berkeley College. Then they had did you remember the shooting at in Ohio? Have you done any research on that? What was the name of that? They were
When
the
was that?
National Guard. That was later. That was in 74, maybe 72, 74. But they sent the National Guard on that campus at that college,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
kids were coming at them, and they fired on them and killed a bunch of them. Boy, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know it don't need to be, but my goodness, you
Yeah.
stop and think if you were in China, they would have killed you. They would have shot you, cut your head off.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But here it was like, oh my gosh, you just shot some kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you're free in America, but you ain't free as you think you are.
Yeah, especially during war times.
Oh golly, it's rough, man. And just try to stay out of it. If you don't have to go in the service, don't. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I have nothing but accolades and good stuff for the VA. They take good care of us.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got two knees that they put in there this year, and there's $100,000. And I mean, they took. I mean, you're like, oh my gosh, this ain't nothing like a hospital out in the world.
Yeah.
They're in no hurry. They come and look at you. They think you're, man, you just go, are you kidding? I was in a private room. Man, they put two brand new titanium knees in me, man. And you go around there and you see these old buzzards hanging around that don't, and half of them are probably homeless and they stink and they smell and you're looking at them and they treat them like kings.
Mm-hmm.
You're going, now that is cool. I tell you, it's special. You're not in the system out here anymore. You're kind of in their system.
Yeah.
I even I drive to the hospital just to make a run up there is 38 miles. They paid me $25 to go up there and back. I put it in. I said my travel time. They sent me 2 checks yesterday, last month, and another check. I got 4 checks, $25 each,
Yeah.
just to go to the hospital. They pay me to go.
Huh.
I'm going in there crazy,
Yeah.
but they take good care of you. The VA is a lot of people have got stuff to say about stuff, and the whiners and complainers is life. It's the same as the Vietnam War. You had whiners and you had complainers. You had people who just wouldn't go and hide out in the hills of Kentucky, and I mean they were out and go get them, drag
Hmm.
them off to the war. But yeah, it's I'm glad you're gonna have enough stuff to do your Vietnam War.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we can keep going. I've pre-made a lot of questions.
I can
So,
tell you, just keep asking, man. I can answer as much as I can without getting sidetracked. These rabbit trails take a lot of time, but
um, what about the Tet Offensive? Because that was January 1968,
uh,
right?
well, yeah, that was before I got there.
Yeah.
And if you'll look, you'll see the Tet Offensive, which was one of their holy days. The
Hmm.
Vietnamese people celebrated Tet, and they did a uh, it'd be like kind of like the Saudi Arabians do a Mahoshadin or whatever they call it,
Yeah.
some holy war or something. It was something to them to muster up their allies, and Ho Chi Minh was the leader, and to get them to all head south and let's all go fight. They made a pretty big push. Well, the Tet Offensive, the B-52s were running. They would come in, land, in hour and a half. They were reloaded, refueled, and hit the runway again.
Hmm.
I mean, they were right and left. They were killing so many North Vietnamese. It was stupid. It was like wow. But LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, would not let the bombs. They wouldn't let the bombers go bomb in Hanoi, the capital of North Vietnam.
Hmm.
They would not let them go up there. They could do some harbor stuff along the coast, the China Sea, but they couldn't go inland and bomb the people. They wouldn't let them kill the people.
Yeah.
And which, if they would have done that, like the Israelis are doing now, and just sweep in there and say, look, if y'all don't get out of the way, somebody's going to get hurt.
Hmm.
But they didn't do that. They tiptoed in there. They wouldn't give them free reign. And
Yeah.
that made the troops kind of lackadaisical and wanted to sit back and get drunk and smoke dope all day.
Yeah.
It made them lazy, is what it did, and they didn't like it, and they didn't like the government stopping them. They're out there to win a war, and they wouldn't let them.
Yeah.
But the Vietnamese weren't. They were pretty formidable. They were pretty tough, and they had thousands of people, thousands, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, and they were funded by China. China gave them all of their strength, and but the Tet Offensive was just it didn't last long. It was probably 6 months, I think, but it was an all-out press to finish the thing,
Yeah.
for the North Vietnamese, and all we did was go on the defense and defend everything. But they killed lots of South Vietnamese. They'd come into villages and just raid them, and kill everybody, and it was burn it to the ground. And of course, we'd get there the next day, and you'd see and of course the Vietnamese were saying, well, where were you? Y'all were supposed to take care of us. And
Hmm.
we're looking at them going, well, wait a minute,
Yeah.
and their hands were tied by the government back in Washington, and they couldn't do anything, and this and that. And it was kind of like just stay alive,
Yeah.
it became that just survive, don't get shot. I had a lot of friends who died in the war. A friend of mine, Robbie Brock, and James Holly was one of my best friends in high school, and he made it through Vietnam and made it back home. And a friend of mine, Robert, saw him. I talked to Robert not long ago on Facebook. I saw Robert, and he said he ran into James Holly over in Hawaii on his way home from the war, and he was so hooked on drugs so bad when he even got back to the States. Him and his sister both died within 2 years from drug overdoses.
Oof.
they were just so hooked on the drugs and stuff from the war, you know.
Yeah.
But they were, some of my best friends from high school, and
Yeah.
you hear other stories, Joe Ed Brown, he died, and this boy died. Their names are on that wall up there in Washington D.C. on the Vietnam Memorial.
Yeah, that black stone that's dug into the earth,
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah.
yeah. Their names are all on there. You knew all these people, and you always knew everybody. You knew families all the way down into South Beaumont and North Beaumont and West Beaumont that had friends who died, in the war.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just one little pocket of Southeast Texas, not counting all across Louisiana, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport, and all the people who had died,
Yeah.
and lots of people died. Man, and their bodies would come home and drape caskets, and I'm sure they do them now too. Well, with Afghanistan over with, it's a little different, but those people just don't want you.
Yeah.
They, it's almost an unwinnable war. You go over there and you're trying to help them,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't need to be there. And uh, it was more of a political war than anything.
Yeah.
You know, here, let's fight over the money in Congress and in the Senate. They fought over money all the time, trying to pass more money for this, more money for that, and then they'd give money to North Vietnam, and they finally said they're going to pull out and we're going to repair the whole place. End up we spent $1 billion, billions of dollars just repairing the place.
Yeah.
You're wow, I mean, stupid stuff. Like, goodness gracious.
Mm-hmm.
Like when somebody attacks you and and blows you up, you want to go back and retaliate, but they wouldn't let you. You know,
Yeah.
and so many uh, memorandums came down that don't do this, don't do that, don't had more don'ts than they did do's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how the officers made it. It was so tough because they couldn't. You had guys who could win wars, guys who were fighters, man, and they wouldn't let them. They wouldn't let them. They'd say, "All right, pull out." And you're going, "Wait a minute, this is a Tet Offensive."
Yeah.
It was a bad portion of the war, but it didn't last long, and we repelled them pretty good. And of course, it was the bombing. I mean, those guys would go hide in the caves, and the bombs would hit, and these things. I mean, it killed lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
Those bombs were terrible, man. I mean, carpet bombing. I remember playing basketball up in northeast Thailand. I was at a tower at the air base up there. Udorn was the name of the place, or Ubon. Ubon was the name of it. There
Mm-hmm.
was one Udorn and a Ubon. And one of my friends from North Dakota was up there. He was a crash rescue guy. And we were up in the fire tower or in the control tower talking to a bunch of air traffic controllers, and we were sitting out on the deck, and I could see. I said, "What is that lightning over there?" He said, "No, that's the B-52s bombing."
Hmm.
It's like 50 miles away, and you could see the sky lighting up. He said,
Yeah.
"They're making a run over there." And you'd sit there and you could hear it boom, 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 boom. I'm going, that's the B-52s from Utapau. And you're up there watching the war. I said, man, that's weird.
Yeah.
But it was like, like the country of Haiti. Have you ever thought about how Haiti is so worn and beaten? And you go next door to the Dominican Republic and it's like Hawaii. It's beautiful, green.
Yeah.
You step over the border and everything they eat all the firewood, anything that will burn, to cook them something to eat. And there's no animals. There's not. Golly, it's just like death all over that whole country of Haiti. But
Mm-hmm.
it's on the same island as the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
And the Dominican has beautiful resorts and has all this beautiful stuff, but well, that's the way it felt in North Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia. It was like death when you step over the border into Laos. It was like you felt something, man. It was weird. It was a weird feeling.
Yeah.
It's like death was right there, not far away. You had to watch. You had to open your eyes and your senses and go, something's wrong here. Whereas in Thailand, there was a lot of fun. And guys would go out at night and then go down to the bars and get a little girl and stay all night. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you had young boys from Minnesota who had never been with a woman in their life, and they'd try to get it all done in 1 week. You know, try to catch up in 1 week, and you're going, "Will you slow down? You're going to kill yourself, boy."
Yeah.
But that's the way young guys were back then. There, and those girls didn't care. They were just out for the money. You know,
Mm-hmm.
spend a couple of bucks and spend the night with a girl. You know,
Yeah.
and I just said, I don't know, man. And you could tell the guys who had got the syphilis and they walked around with these little jingling pills in their pockets. You know, you could hear, you go, oh, you went out last night, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
They're sick call the next day. You know, got the STD or whatever they call them.
Yeah.
And that went on a lot in Thailand and in Vietnam, and
Yeah.
you know, there was a whole business going on over there with that. And of course, all of the relics and all of the souvenirs and stuff. But war was not fun over there. It was unwinnable. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was not good. It was unwinnable. Of course, then the North Vietnamese they backed away in '75. They downsized everything, and everything was in Saigon and right there at the American embassy, where the last helicopter left. They got on it on the rooftop and flew away and never came back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just stay away. Now we're friends with them. We have an embassy over there, and they have one over here.
Yep.
And I'm going, well, just give it 30 years and it'll change, you know.
Hmm.
And most of those people who fought in that war are dead, you know. Agent Orange or your David, you know. I mean, Alvin, my brother, he's got Agent Orange, you know.
Mm.
They're doing a lot of testing on him now for his colon and stuff's got cancer in it or whatever. They saw a lot of stuff in there, so he's working on that over there.
Yeah.
You know, find cancer in him from that. He's right up on the DMZ, right up on the North Vietnam border, firing his gun every day. They'd give them coordinates and they would bomb it. You know, just fire that big gun,
Yeah.
155 howitzer, and that's what he did. He was on the artillery. He went to Fort Bliss after his Fort Polk, and that's where they teach you to fire guns. And Oklahoma, if you're going to be a tanker, or a Missouri, and if you go to infantry, you stayed at Vietnam or in Fort Polk in Tigerland. You know, that's infantry. But you got shipped off to Fort Bliss,
Yeah.
El Paso, and it was a lot of going and coming. And of course, the airlines were making money because I went over on a Continental airline. I never forget. I was sitting at the back of the plane. It was a 3 seats on each side, you know, and I sat right next to a beautiful lady. Me and her talked all the way to Hawaii. She was a stewardess, and I mean, she got me, went back there and got me some good food, man. Brought me, we chatted and chatted. Of course, you know me, I got a gift of gab. I can talk to anybody,
Mm.
and we chatted all the way, laughed, cut up, and man, it was, you know, all those GIs on there, probably 250 people on that airplane, every seat filled. And I sat at the back of the plane, me and uh, one other guy, I can't think of his name, but anyway, and we were all headed inland. You know, when you left the Philippines or Hawaii, you were flying to Manila. The Philippines was an 11-hour flight, and you just slept all the way. Of course, she didn't go that far. She just went to Hawaii and got off. But went on to the Philippines, and then when you left the Philippines to go to Thailand, you flew right over Vietnam. So when you flew over Vietnam to get to Bangkok, they gave you $60 for your combat pay, they called it. So we made an extra $60 in our paycheck. We were excited. We got $60, man. Of
Yeah.
course, by then I already had 2 stripes on my shoulder. No, I think yeah, because when I got to Thailand, I got my 3rd stripe. I became a sergeant,
Mm-hmm.
and once you got that 3rd stripe, man, you were proficient in everything you did. Man, you could run a show, you know.
What did each of the stripes mean?
Well, 1 stripe, of course, is well, you had no stripes was an airman basic. He was just a basic. Um, and you didn't have nothing. You were in basic training, and when you got one stripe, you were airman second class. And two stripes was airman first class back then. They've already made three stripes, which are airman first class now. But when you got three stripes, you were a buck sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went to staff sergeant was four stripes. Five stripes was tech sergeant. But when I got out of the service, I was a three striper. And then I made four stripes. So I went into the reserves for 2 years. So they gave me my fourth stripe. And while I was in the reserve, they gave me my fifth. I
Mm.
didn't make no money because you just went 2 weeks every year for your training just to stay proficient, you know.
Yeah.
Hung out and wiped down fire trucks is all I did at Eglin Air Base in Houston, Texas. Eglin? No. Yeah, Eglin. Eglin was in Houston and England was in Alexandria.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd go over there and do my 2 week training and go over and stay. Your grandmother didn't like that. Pam didn't like me leaving.
Mm-hmm.
When I'd leave and go over there, I'd be gone for 2 weeks. They took care of you though. You stayed right there in the place, and then it was training. You had to do it 2 months or 2 weeks a year in the summertime.
Yeah.
That was back when they were doing the astronauts and stuff training over there. They had T-5 fighters, freedom fighters and stuff flying. That's where all the astronauts flew, those little jets.
Mm-hmm.
They'd fly from Florida back to land at Eglin Air Force Base. Uh, I remember going over there. I remember Pam and Dusty coming one time. Dusty was a baby,
Mm-hmm.
and they came over, and I got my paycheck from the paymaster over there. They gave me a paycheck, and I had enough money to go to Six Flags. What was it? Six Flags was down there in Houston. What was the name of that?
Mm.
At the Astrodome, there was a amusement park there. You've probably been there.
I'm not
I think
sure.
it might have
Was it
been.
Six
I don't know if it was
Flags?
Six Flags, something like that. Astro World. That's what it was. Astro World.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember taking Dusty and Pam to that. We walked around Astro World, and you had a paycheck. We got a paycheck from over there.
Yeah.
We didn't have had no money to stay anywhere. We'd drive back to Beaumont and stay at my mama's house.
Mm-hmm.
But that was back in the day. You didn't have nothing. You didn't. We was poor. We didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Always had something to eat and something to do. But anyway, that was another story. But
Mm-hmm.
so I got tech sergeant. So it was a good time.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago, 50, 55 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
52 years ago. Long time.
Yeah. It's been a
I was
while.
20, 21 years old. Yeah, your age.
Yeah.
So we had the world by the tail.
Yeah.
But, got out of there and just got to work. That's what you got to do when you get out of college. Go to work, man. Just work.
Mm-hmm.
Be on time and just work, and they'll pay you for your time. Do it for 40 years, and you can think about retiring.
Yeah.
I retired at 65, and geez, man, the money just flows. I don't know where it comes from, but it just keeps coming.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to they send you a check in the mail, and you just, okay, here's another one, you know. And they can spend the last one. What the heck is that doing here? But either way, it was not a great time. I can't say it wasn't a great time, or it was, because I wasn't enthralled in combat.
Mm-hmm. I
I
think you
didn't have
still had
to.
like a lot of really valuable experiences though. Like it still sounds like interesting. Like you were still a part of the war.
Oh yeah, you were there. I mean, you saw things that you go, oh, whoa, what's wrong with that guy?
Mm-hmm.
He crawled out of there and his arm is gone. And you go, whoa.
Yeah.
And you see this little plane that took off this morning. It was called an OP-10 or a PO-10, and it was a little observation plane. And what it does, it goes up. It's a twin engine plane, but it has these propellers on it that are really quiet. and it can glide too. It has big wings, and it goes and has this canopy, this bubble canopy, so you can see 360 degrees. It has two people in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it flies over Vietnam, and it pinpoints things that the fighters. Oh, whoa, whoa! Look at all those troops there, and they pinpoint each of those parallels, and then they call in the artillery, or they call in, and it's just an observation. Well, they get shot at a lot because they don't go real fast.
Yeah.
And one came in one day, and the canopy was blown totally off of it. A bullet hit it, man, and the guy's face was all bloody from the. I mean, you're traveling 100 miles an hour, but that ain't fast at all in an airplane. And they can shoot at you, and they load down and shot at him and shot the canopy out of that thing, and the crash of the canopy cut this guy's face like took his ear off, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they come back and land, and you walk over there and go, "Oh, that guy doesn't look too good. What happened?" Then
Mm-hmm.
you start looking at things, and you go, "Oh, I see. It got shot at." You see things come back with bullet holes in it. You're going, "Whoa!"
Mm-hmm.
They shoot at them a lot, and they're in combat. You know, they're in it,
Yeah.
and they're always doing exercises of all sort where they're like all of a sudden they show these two sampans or three sampans coming up on the beach, and these people are invading the Utapao, the air base. And of course, the air police and the Thai police, and they all swarm down on top of them. And they call us, and we run out there too, you know, and you got a big force to meet those people on the beach, and they put them on the ground and handcuff them and like treat them like terrorists, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
they're shooting guns and everything. More pow, 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 pow. And you're going, whoa, bullets flying. It's just rehearsing what could happen, you know.
Yeah.
And you go through all of that, but it was cool. And I remember one of my roommates, and when I first got back to Utapau, I was in a dormitory. It was like a 4-story dormitory, housed about 300 troops, and they had you know, like 4 guys to a room, 3 guys.
Hmm.
Some had 2, you know. But anyway, my roommate was a guy. His name was he was a Jewish guy. Arnold was his last name. He was a company clerk, and his family would always send him care packages. I mean, like, golly, like 3 a week. You'd get these care packages of this Jewish food, you know, that was
Yeah.
kosher and everything, you know, gefilte fish and all sorts of crackers. And you'd have instructions on what to do with this and how to pray over that. And I'd be there with him. I'd eat some of that stuff with him. I'm going, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we ate roast beef, and we'd go to they had an air base or a airman's club made for the enlisted people,
Mm-hmm.
the non-commissioned officers club, they called it NCO club, and the airman's club. And we'd go, and they'd have people come from America or bands make tours through there. I mean, we'd see people like Tommy James and the Shondells, you know, and here come Jerry Lewis and the Pacemakers or something. You know, they were a
Yeah.
good band. They were up there with the Beatles and everybody. I mean, they were on Ed Sullivan's show.
Mm-hmm.
They were famous little bands, and they would come through and they'd play a couple of nights. And I remember when I was at the air base in at Hamilton Air Base up there in North California, north of San Francisco. Would go to the air base at night, and there was a band there, and this guy was the lead singer, and he was real hairy. Man, I mean, this guy had hair. He could pull handfuls off of his chest. His arms were like a gorilla. And you know who it was?
Who?
It was Black Sabbath, and it was Ozzy Osbourne. The guy's on TV, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was him, and he's on this little 8-foot stage with a drum set and a bass guitar, and he was a lead guitar and the mics, and they were singing and we were dancing. They would sing, you know, Inagata de Vida, baby. And we were dancing to that crap, man. Having so much fun. But that's what was going, that kind of music, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But just try to see that movie if you can. Good Morning Vietnam.
Okay.
and that'll tell you a lot about Vietnam because they had radio. We listened to the radio, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They had the USO Club, and Bob Hope came over. I think I saw him twice when I was over there. The Bob Hope show. He'd bring the girls with him.
Mm-hmm.
They'd all sing songs, and we'd be right there, and it was cool. The USO, you see that on Facebook or YouTube if you go on there and do the Bob Hope, and you'll see where he toured Vietnam, and his
Yeah.
shows were there, and all the guys in uniform. Some cool stuff, man.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any other like music you really like listening to? Like that like impacted your views or that you listened to because of your views on the war maybe?
No, no, not really. I was, in high school and stuff, I was, of course, an athlete, but I danced a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we would go in Beaumont. They had on Friday and Saturday night. They had places where the teenagers could go dance.
Mm-hmm.
No alcohol, but they'd have groups like let's see, we had a guy named S.J. Well, I can't think of his last Patillo, S.J. and the Crossroads. He had a little band, and they would play, and they were really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'd have people come over like the Grassroots from Houston. They would have oh golly, some of the names I can't think of them, but they were little bands, garage bands, more or less, but they were really, some of them had records, were famous.
Yeah.
And they would come over, and they had a place in downtown Beaumont called the Rose Room at the Hotel Beaumont, and all the kids would show up there. Of course, we'd be there, pay $2 a person, and dance. Man, I mean, just get sweaty and dance,
Mm-hmm.
drink Coca-Cola, and then we had another one called the King Edward Hotel, or the Imperial Room. We'd go over there and dance, but it was for kids. It wasn't a bar or anything. They had cokes and stuff, no alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids would slip out on the balconies and smoke and stuff. But it was a place to hang out, and we all learned to dance. And then every once in a while we'd go across the river into Louisiana over to Big Oaks or over in Vinton,
Mm-hmm.
over there this side of Lake Charles, and we would end up going or the other side of Lake Charles. And they had these big clubs over there, and boy, you talking about watching some good fights, man. You'd see some good ones. Knockdown dragouts, boy.
Oof.
Drunk, drunk, drunk. Well, we'd go over there and have to drive 30 miles back home, but it was okay, it wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
But you could drink over there when you were 18. Of course, I never drank because I was always the athlete,
Yeah.
and I was always the driver, the designated driver.
Yeah.
We'd have my buddy had a 57 Chevrolet, and I drove a 4-speed. I'd drive that 57 Chevrolet. We'd have 10 people in there, man. Some of them drunk as cooter, just stop the car. I'm going to throw up, man. Wandering out through the bushes. You'd have to go get them. I said, oh, gee. Some of those boys, went on to the war. But I did have some buddies that didn't have to go. I don't know. My best friend, Bobby, he didn't have to go. But James Holly went.
Yeah.
Bobby never went. His brother was in the Army, Bill. He didn't go to Vietnam, though. He worked at DuPont Oil or DuPont Chemical his
Mm-hmm.
whole life. You know, nicest people, man. They were some good folks back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, never had any. Oh, we had confrontations, but they were just taught you how to fight.
Yeah.
That's most of that was. Just you had to get in fights. It's good for a guy to fight. You learn how to take a punch, and you learn. I think me and Royce went at it a couple of times. We fought. And I always thought I was scared of Royce. Boy, when I fought him, I went, he's a guy. He's a wimp. I said, I think Dusty hit me harder than Royce did. It was fun, though. It was back in the day. Roger would stand and watch. Uncle Roger.
Mm-hmm.
It was back in the day, though. We'd have some fun times.
Yeah.
At the deer camps, we'd be up there. But yeah, it was good, that some of the guys came on back, and then the war slowed down in '75. So by then, I was out of Beaumont already, and we'd already moved up to Simpson,
Mm-hmm.
up there. But they were all from all over, all parts of the United States. I mean, they were everywhere. Even some of the uh, some of the Spanish guys and Mexican people who immigrated over here, they joined the army,
Mm-hmm.
and they got their citizenship, which is good. That was a good way to get it.
Yeah.
Dedicate your life and volunteer for the service.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get your citizenship and your family, and it was a good thing.
Yeah.
And that was one of the incentives they gave them was to you get your citizenship if you joined the army for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed it. It was, you can talk about it now, and you didn't die, and you didn't get hurt or nothing. I think about the hardest injury I ever got was I got a GG shot one time, and I didn't rest. You're supposed to go rest for 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I went and played basketball, and I thought my leg was going to fall off. One of them gamma goblin shots, you had to get one every 6 months. It kills everything big enough to die.
Yeah.
And you had to get one of them. You get one in the service.
Mm-hmm.
So we got one,
Yeah.
But that's like you hear in the service nowadays, well, I'm not taking that, I'm not taking that shot. I'm not going to take that pandemic shot. No, I'm not taking. Hey, in the service, you took it. Hey, you got to be at the dispensary tomorrow morning. You're getting shots. Okay, we went. You stood in line. They shot you. You didn't know what you got. You got everything from diphtheria to the flu.
Yeah.
They give it to you. How do you get to say no? You can't say no.
Yeah.
You take it, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your captain said go to the dispenser and get your shots. You went and got them. You didn't say, I don't want to take that shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. COVID. You got to take the COVID shot. Oh, I don't want to, Captain. Go to the dispensary or I'm going to put you under arrest. You disobey the order. What's the matter with you? And you hear that on TV and you kind of look at it funny going, but now I hear that they have a card if you're in the service and you're in basic training and you carry it in the top pocket, of your blouse.
Mm-hmm.
And if the sergeant or the drill instructor is yelling at you and you're stressed and you feel like there's too much pressure that you can't handle it anymore, you can pull that card out and you hold it up and he can't yell at you anymore. I heard that and I went, are you kidding me? You gonna do that to a drill sergeant? You chew your ear off.
Yeah.
That's you got to discipline the people, and I tell you that's what people need is discipline to understand that, that your voice is your voice, but you better watch it. It
Mm-hmm.
gets you in a lot of trouble. You don't ever say no.
Yeah.
Or I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
We had a guy in the University of Alabama boy. His name was McConaughey, Chester McConaughey. He couldn't even tie his boots. I had to tie his boots for him every morning. He didn't know how to tie his shoes. He said, all through my life, I've had slip-ons my whole life. I said, you don't know how to tie the bunny ears? We laughed. You got to do the bunny over here, the loopy over here. And I'd tie his boots for him every morning. And then I'd run the mile and I'd finish ahead of everybody. 2 squads ahead, I'd pass everybody up. Then I'd have to go and put Chester's arm around my shoulder and help him finish the mile.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, he was a big old boy, but he lost a lot of weight while he's in there. It's hard I can't believe I remember the guy's name 55 years ago.
Yeah.
That's amazing. 57 years ago, and I remember Chester McConaughey.
Yeah. You remember him like a lot of names.
A
You
lot
know
of
everybody.
names. Yeah, I do. I know a lot of stuff, man. But yeah, there's a lot going on. But yeah, you'll get into it. You'll understand it. Don't be don't be introverted. Be extroverted in your life and talk to people. Start stuff. I start things. I go over to people standing in the line at the grocery store and I start something.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the VA and I look at people and hey, how you doing today? Just to start talking.
Yeah.
And you never know what people's going through,
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes Gene Ann tell me, you need to shut up. I said, no, I don't. I always look at them and say, hey, what do you call a hippie's wife? And they look at me and go, what? I said, that's Mrs. Hippie. They laugh. You know, so what happened to the frog that parked in front of the fire hydrant? I don't know. Hey, he got towed. Wait a minute. Just start it. You know? Get something going with them. You know, be extroverted in life and start things. You know, you'll learn a lot more, and you'll be you can do things. You know, that's how you get a lot of stuff done. But you have a good time with it, and hope you can get some more of that. I think some more stuff, man. Uh,
Yeah,
Vietnam. But watch that movie. Good Morning Vietnam.
I'll definitely watch it.
You'll enjoy it. That'll give you some inspiration. Now you'll see what's going on. You see guys going off to war, and you see the frustrations in their minds. And it's
Hmm.
really they have the radio. You know, Robin Williams is a radio disc jockey. He's famous, and he comes to Vietnam, and everybody expects these great things out of him. And you know, and they think that it's going to really boost the morale, and it's going to do this and do that. And he finds out that you can't do that, you know, and then he finds a sympathy with the people, you know, and it's really cool. It's got a good plot to it.
Okay.
He tells you what a person's mind, a soldier's mind goes through when he gets in country there, because you know, as an American, we have sympathy for people and stuff and empathy, and you know, we can walk a mile in their shoes if we have to, but you know, other countries don't.
Yeah.
They don't feel that way we do. They're harsh and mean and take in life. You know, they're not givers. You know,
Hmm.
and you find out why America, how we anything happens in the world, we always send a lot of money, a lot of food, a lot of people. We send the volunteers, we send the money. Nobody else collects money. Sweden doesn't collect money and send it to us when we have an earthquake.
Yeah.
They don't. Nobody does it for us. We do it for everybody else. That's why we're still allowed to be here. I think has a
Yeah.
lot to do with because we're givers. American people are givers. We're not takers.
Yeah,
You
and I
know.
feel like a lot of that started around this time period in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
We felt like a
Yeah.
responsibility to give and to protect.
Yeah. And we had empathy for the people, you know, and then wanting to get their freedom. And we understand freedom because we have it here,
Hmm.
and they don't. You know. I mean, you go down to countries where you go, you cross, you go to Mexico, you do
Yeah.
the wrong thing, you end up in jail, man.
Yeah.
Be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Spend another year or two in jail down there. Well, here,
Hmm.
you know, it's different. It's like, whoa, this is America, man. I can get in my car and drive down and get me a hamburger if I want to, you know. And if I talk real nice, I can get the old buddy over there to buy it for me. I mean, it's different. It's we're just a bunch of givers over here, and they're not.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like you know, don't bring your Puerto Rican flag over here. I don't need a Puerto Rican flag waved in my face at the
Yeah.
red light. I don't need that. Get out the American flag. If you want to be American, be one. You know, you
Hmm.
like it over here, be an American. Don't be a Puerto Rican. I'm not Irish. I don't care where I came from. You know,
Hmm.
I'm here. You know, but it's a different feeling, man. You just have to keep moving. And oh well. But watch that movie, Good Morning America. You'll like it.
Yeah, I think I
You'll
will.
enjoy
After you telling me just a little bit about it, it sounds really good.
it. Yeah. Yes. Robin Williams. You'll like it.
Hmm.
Good movie.
Yeah. So, just really quick, can you tell me like more about the basketball and like where you kind of went with that and how'd you
Well,
get into it and stuff?
I was I was a hustler. I just liked fast. You know, I wasn't but 5'10", 5'11",
Hmm.
but I could jump through. I could stick my arm in the basket. You know, I could jump really good.
Yeah.
And I didn't, you know, when a big guy go to the basket, I went with him. And when the rebound was coming, I went with him. They'd look at me like, "What the heck are you doing?" Boy, coach would look at me and say, he'd shake his head at me and nod at me and said, "Get on." And I took that into the Air Force with me when I went into the Air Force.
Hmm.
And I mean, I had guys playing who played basketball on the, you know, in the parks in New York City. You know, Donald Sanford was one boy, and he had never played organized basketball in his life.
Hmm.
He's like 6'2" and could, I mean, stick his head in the rim. This guy was amazing. And to have him on one of my forwards, and I was the guard.
Mhm.
And man, I tell you what, between those two guys, I had another guy on this guy, the white guy named Jim, and he was, man, us three guys, and then we had that 6'7", 6'8", under the bucket. We beat everybody, man. We were good. We won the Asian Championship. We beat everybody. We beat China, man.
Mhm.
I went to the island of Sri Lanka. India came and played us.
Yeah.
We had a nice gym though. It was in the Air Force. We had nice sports places. Now they're better than ever.
Mhm.
Lived in a trailer house.
Yeah. I know.
Going to college at night and slipping off and trying to get a class in here and a class there.
Yeah.
But people called and said I was making about 20,000 a year, 25,000 a year, and they offered me 55,000 to go to work. And I went, okay, I think I'll do that. You don't have to twist my arm.
Mhm.
So I went to the chemical plants. I was a planner scheduler. I planned all of the maintenance work inside there, all the valves and all the appurtenances, all
Yeah.
the controls, everything. They'd give me a budget and I'd say, well, okay, let's do this, 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 and this. And I'd have
Mhm.
every morning I'd have 7 or 8 jobs for the maintenance crews to do.
Yeah. And you
Just,
you went to the Lamar Tech College?
yeah.
Yeah. And then how long were you there?
Oh, golly, I'm from 73 to 75 and a half, 6.
Mhm.
I went at night school. I didn't go to the regular school.
Yeah.
Just went nights. So I could get something, but it didn't help me end up in the long run.
Yeah.
End up, I wanted to work for myself, so I did.
Yeah.
But I did learn that in the fire department that most of the guys they worked some kind of construction, or they worked some kind of like tinting windows. They had their own little business. And a lot of them, some of them did wallpaper and some did painting and some did construction, some built houses. Because as a fireman, you work one day on 24 hours, then
Mhm.
you were off for 48, 2 days off. So you had to do something.
Yeah.
But it was good times and bad. You
Mhm.
just had to take the good with the bad. But when you're married and young and feel like you should be doing more than what you're doing, life kind of beats you up a little bit
Yeah.
until you get a hold of what you're really supposed to be doing, which is about 35, 40 years old.
Yeah.
It was good. It was a good long life.
Mhm.
I'm just healthy as I can be. My blood pressure is great. I don't have any problems, no internal problems, no heart problems. My knees were sore, too much basketball, I think, but I got new ones now, but I'm in good shape.
Yeah.
Doing good, man.
Yeah.
But, well, I have to let you go. It's 10:23 here.
Oh yeah. I forgot you're an hour ahead over there.
Yeah, but I ain't going nowhere. I'm still here. What have I got to do tomorrow? I got PT at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
I
Cool.
get up and get coffee and
Mhm.
watch the news is what I do. And the wife takes her 3 mile walk, and I used to go with her on the bike, but I haven't been lately because of the legs. But I
All
need to
right.
start.
Well, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for talking to me. This was
I mean, anytime, man. Call me anytime. I'm around, and
mhm.
I
Well,
hopefully you got enough information, a lot of
I think
stuff that you can use. If I think any more, we can talk again, man. We can talk some more.
yeah, I'm down to talk some more, try to get whatever else we
Have you been
can, but
recording this whole time?
yes, sir.
You're gonna have fun. You got a
Yeah.
lot of editing to do, man.
Yeah, I've got some editing and then I got to transcript it, so I got to do that, but it's not going to be too bad. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send you some more pictures. I can get a lot of pictures, but watch that movie, man. You'll enjoy it. It'll enlighten you a little bit.
Mhm. I'll watch it for
It'll
sure.
Good morning, Vietnam.
And thanks for telling me like the history that I didn't know on your side and stuff with
Oh yeah.
what
Yeah.
happened with your parents and then like
Well, we had an Uncle Bat. He lived in Batson, Texas.
mhm.
He's the oldest bachelor in the state of Texas. He was 102 years old. He never married. my
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Bat.
Yeah, there's just a lot that I
So
didn't know, and it was really cool to get all of it.
yeah, yeah, you get some more. We still got relatives alive, or a lot of kings
Mm-hmm.
still around. Got a lot of family over there. But there's a lot of things you'll hear about VFWs and veterans of foreign wars and all these little. They're just glorified beer joints, is what they are. Where these old soldiers go and trying to hustle something or trying to miss. You'll hear about a lot of those. The VA and some of these places where they just. I mean, I've been to places where they get up in the morning down here at 7 o'clock. They're at that bar or at that VFW hall
Mm-hmm.
and they go in there, the American Legion or whatever, and they start getting drunk. They eat their breakfast and they drink. By 10:30, they're drunk as hooter. They walk across the street at their house. They crash, go to sleep for about 3 or 4 hours,
Mm-hmm.
wake up at 3 in the afternoon, head back over to the bar at the VFW, belly up there and drink till 7, 8 o'clock at night, eat them a little breakfast or lunch or supper, and go back home and just crash.
Mm-hmm.
That's their whole life. That's what they do. You're kind of going, man, just waiting for death is what they're waiting on.
Yeah.
It's really sad. And I've seen it so many times. I mean, I've been in those places and worked, and
Yeah.
you see him, same guy coming back and forth, and you're looking at him going, golly, what a life.
Yeah. It's
And then it's rough.
yeah. It sounds like it.
Sad. Sad.
Yeah, it's just I
Well,
guess ways
just
of
remember,
dealing
don't
with it.
don't go in the military unless you have to.
Yeah, unless there's a draft.
Stay away from it, man. It isn't good for you.
Mm-hmm.
It could be good for some people, but probably was good for me, I guess. But
Yeah. Okay. Thank you
all right, Parker.
so
You're
much.
welcome, man.
It was really good.
Call me anytime, man. I'm around.
All right, I will. Thank you. Bye.
All right, buddy. Take care. See ya.